Okay, hi everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for our Lonely Planet Hangout on Air. The topic of this month's Hangout is possibly unsurprisingly but very enjoyably Brazil. And I'm delighted to say that we're not talking about Brazil solely from the Lonely Planet office in London, though that's where I'm speaking to you from. But we also have our illustrious panel of a Brazilian and a Brazil expert. So we have Melissa, who is a Lonely Planet editor in Sao Paulo. And also there is Kevin, who is our Lonely Planet author for Brazil. Guys, could you stand up slightly and just show people that you have come prepared for the occasion in terms of what you are wearing, please?
We're here.
There we go. Excellent.
We go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, as some of you will be aware, the greatest tragedy of the World Cup so far has been England getting knocked out. They lit up the tournament, and really, I think, unquestionably, the highlight of the whole thing was the Costa Rica-England game. So, but because England are out, I'm dressed as a referee today. So as you can see, I'm wearing all black. And if you're listening into this and thinking, this is a Lonely Planet hangout, what on earth are you doing talking about football? Just to assure you, the subject of this is about Brazil and what it's like to be in the country right now, rather than the finer points of referees' free kick spray or something like that. Therefore, we've got quite a few topics that we want to cover over the next 30 minutes or so, but we really encourage everybody watching to get involved either on Twitter or on Hangout or however you want to. So if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to share with us, please do so, and I'll do my best to both get those questions answered and also make sure that we give everyone who gets in touch a mention. So do let us know what you think about things. That said, I do want to jump straight into the action. Kevin, I wonder if we could start with you. You're pretty lucky, I reckon, to be in Brazil right now. It looks like you're having a pretty super time. Can you tell everybody who isn't there just what it's like to be in Brazil today?
Well, it's a lot more celebratory than it is to be in England at the moment. I actually thought you were black because you're in mourning, but Brazil is pretty great at the moment. I think a lot of the fears that people had before the Cup, that things weren't going to go well and everything was going to be a disaster and Brazilians were going to wait to the last minute, that they did. But I think most of those fears seem to be unfounded. It's been very smooth. It's been a really nice atmosphere. It depends on where you are. Like in São Paulo, where I live, it's hard for me to really tell. People have flags in their houses and flags on their cars. But when I was in Salvador, the whole city was just electric, full of people from all around the world, and everyone chanting their football chants and wearing their football jerseys, and really, really celebratory atmosphere. So for me, Salvador so far has been the best place, and I'm sure Rio is the same, but I haven't actually made it to Rio yet because I'm not going to go there until the final.
Okay, right, fantastic. And Melissa, tell us a little bit about life in Brazil. We have an image of the country which I think is actually being encouraged over the course of the tournament, that Brazil is a place where there's a lot of parties, there's a lot of football, there's a lot of sunshine. Clearly life is not all like that, and some of the scenes that were coming out of Brazil beforehand really suggested a different side to it. But day-to-day life in Brazil, how far is it from the image that we have of the country?
Well, I think we have this image because, of course, we love football, we love parties, but of course we have problems also, as anyone. But I think we have this way to go through difficulties. I think we always look after the positive thing in every situation. That's why I think we have this image abroad. But of course, we have problems. We had some problems before the World Cup with the preparation of the tournament, as you saw with the protests and everything. But I think now that the tournament is already going on, we are having parties, we are celebrating, we are trying to receive the best way we can the foreigners that are coming to Brazil. So I think this is the way we react to problems here, you know. We are going to problems we have after the World Cup.
But just
Not during.
But just for the record, life in Rio is exactly how you described.
I won't get into the rivalry that I'm sure there is between Rio and Sao Paulo. We could be here some time. But so in terms of people being in in Brazil from overseas, are we seeing a lots and lots of supporters from around the world? When you're moving around the city, are you seeing people in distinctive dress from other countries and things like that, or is it largely confined to around the stadiums and things?
From what I've seen, there's a lot. It depends on where you are in the city. In my neighborhood, of course, I see not much at all, but in Vila Madalena, which is the main nightlife district of São Paulo, it's been full nightly, just full of all the colors of the different teams and one big street party. It feels kind of like a Mardi Gras each night, and it was the same way for me in Salvador. So it really depends on where you're moving. I mean, São Paulo is 21 million people, so you could be anywhere in the city and have no idea World Cup is even happening, and then you move a couple of blocks and you're in the middle of a crazy party. That's been my experience. How about you, Melissa?
Well, I think here in Brazil, we are celebrating everywhere. The atmosphere. We are having parties. The atmosphere is great, and people are very optimistic with the tournament, with the party, and you can see flags everywhere. People wearing jerseys of our national team everywhere, and the climate here is so nice. It's amazing right now, the atmosphere.
I remember 2 years ago when London was hosting the Olympics. What an exciting time it was to be in the city, and you felt like you had the eyes of the world on you. In a funny way, it felt like there was some. It was a bit of a test for how people almost saw England and London as a place to visit. How do you think Brazilians are finding being in the spotlight in that way? Is it a positive experience? I mean, is it something that feels exciting to have the eyes of the world on Brazil?
Yes, I think it's a very positive experience. I think Brazilians are enjoying this. I think before the tournament we were like worried, but now we are proud of our party, of the World Cup, and of course we want to receive as well as we can all travelers that are coming, because we want them to come back more times, not only now for the tournament. We want them to know our country, the good things we have to show, and of course we want them to come back. And I think we are feeling very well right now with this spotlight on us.
And obviously before any major event, questions are asked about whether it'll be difficult for people coming to the country to find accommodation, to get around. I've spoken to several groups of travellers and media outlets myself who are asking questions about how best should people who are going for the tournament travel around. Kevin, from the people that you've spoken to, have people had difficulties in moving around? Have they found it to be a good experience so far?
All the people I've spoken to have really had nothing negative to say other than the prices, which is not even related to the World Cup. It's an expensive place, even when there's a major international event. But the people I've spoken to have said everything's gone really smooth. Everybody's been really helpful, especially with buses, and getting around the country has not been a problem. And I've taken up to this point 11 domestic flights now, and I haven't waited in a line longer than 2 minutes, which that for me is one of the biggest surprises of this Cup, because a lot of people thought the airline infrastructure here was really going to buckle under the pressure. And for me, when I'm flying, I other than the crowds that you see at the airports, I can't even tell that there's a World Cup. It's been so smooth. There's been no delays, no lines of security. That part for me is really shocking. I've waited in longer lines when it's just a regular day when we're not having the Cup. So I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's just luck or there's some other reason, but they really pulled that together, and I think most travelers have had nothing but positive experience. I actually haven't had anyone complain to me about anything yet, other than the prices.
So, I mean, I'm curious about that point that you mentioned about taking domestic flights around Brazil, because one of the things that's very clear, all you have to do is look at a map. Brazil's huge. massive place. And in terms of getting the best out of the country, it feels like taking flights is an inevitable part of it. Are we talking about a setup where there are, what I would call budget flights or low-cost carriers that are active, and people are booking online, making their own arrangements, and using that as the way to make their plans?
I think it's a combination. Sometimes it can be difficult for foreigners here to book flights online because they don't have a Brazilian tax ID number, which is always a barrier here for foreigners buying things. Same with SIM cards and other things that foreigners need. But we do have a low-cost carrier called Azul. It was started by the same person who started JetBlue in the U.S. And I remember a few months before the Cup, they capped their World Cup domestic flights at 800 reais, which is about $400. And when they did that, it sort of created a competition among the others and made them sort of bring their prices down. I made the mistake of buying one of my flights a little too early, so I paid a lot more for that one than I did all the other domestic flights that I've purchased. But buying that hasn't really been a problem. And if you don't have a Brazilian tax ID, you have to go to the airport usually or through a travel agent. But I don't think it's been difficult at all to actually purchase, availability-wise as well.
And should someone find themselves in somewhere like let's say that someone finds themselves somewhere like Salvador, and they're wanting to change their plans or amend what they're doing, do you get the sense that at the moment you said that there aren't huge lines, but that there's a lot of pressure on it? Flights are full, it can be difficult to get on them. I mean, are people having to stick to quite a prescribed itinerary, or are they able to change plans?
I would say flight-wise, they're probably sticking to what they booked, because I actually tried to change one of my flights, and it was going to be like $1,200 change fee. So the change fees are really, really... There's a small change fee, but then there's the fare differences, and the fare differences from what we purchase are really great. So that's probably the hindrance. I think if you're on buses, you have a little more leeway to change your plans, but for the most part, I think people are probably sticking to their original flights.
I suppose, Melissa, in amongst all the positive points that we're making, we should really just take a few minutes to address some of the concerns that were raised about visiting Brazil before the tournament. This question reminds me a lot of questions that were asked about South Africa before the previous World Cup. But we've had a question from a fan saying, in big cities, what is the situation around crime? If someone's going to Brazil, venturing into those streets, can they walk around with a professional camera or something like that? What would you say to, if I was coming, and what would you say to me?
Well, of course we have problems with violence here in big cities, but we are people can walk in streets with no problem at all. Of course, you have to take care of yourself. Don't walk in downtown São Paulo after 8 p.m., for example. But you can walk in Avenida Paulista without any problem. Of course, taking care of your things and but it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to walk in the street and then we'll be at a thief in the next corner, and then it's not like this. I know we have this image, but it's not like this at all. I'm Brazilian, and I didn't have any problem with violence. I can.
Yes. It's always a very different thing when you're on the ground. I think that the perception from overseas is very different, and once you're actually in a place, I think there are actually comparatively few places in the world that you can go to where you genuinely would feel unsafe. And of course, you need to take local advice, etc. But it would seem to me that most people going, as you say, are having a fantastic time, and that's brilliant.
Yes, and I was talking with some travelers that are here for the World Cup, and they told me one thing that they pointed out is that, oh, I'm feeling safe here. I was thinking that I had a kind of problem with violence and stuff like that, but no, I'm feeling safe. I can walk on the streets without any problems. So
pretty good. That's cool. Well, that's good. It's good to know, and it's good to cover that one off. I mean, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Brazil as a destination generally, because as we've already said, Brazil is a huge place. I think if you asked someone tell me what I should, write down what you think you should do in Brazil, people would obviously talk about the big cities. They'd probably mention the Iguazu Falls and the Amazon. Kevin, I wonder if you could talk about some of the Brazil's less well-known attractions. I mean, some things that maybe haven't hit the international headlines, and maybe ones that people should think about doing if they were going for the first time.
It's a pretty endless list, actually. Like you said, Brazil is huge, and most people definitely underestimate the country's size. I would say that the three things that you mentioned are the big hits that the majority of people go, and most people don't even venture beyond those. And there's so much more than that. I would say some of my favorite places are Bonito in Mato Grosso do Sul, where they have these amazing crystal clear rivers that are like swimming in aquariums. It's a unique natural phenomenon. I'm not sure if it's the only place in the world where it has it, but it's one of the very few, and it's really an amazing place. There's Lençóis Maranhense National Park in the north, in the state of Maranhão, which is dunes, these amazing windswept dunes with perfect blue lagoons strewn amongst them for miles and miles. There's one of my favorite destinations it's very easy for World Cup people between Rio and São Paulo is Paraty. It's a colonial town that's a really beautiful place to visit, very cinematic, the old cobblestones and the whitewashed houses and all the colors. I mean, it's really, you can go on and on. Fernando de Noronha in the northeast, it's an island off the coast of Recife. This is always voted Brazil's top 3 beaches. It's a UNESCO natural heritage site and the best diving and surfing in Brazil. They have a limited number of people that are allowed to go per day, so it's very, very remote and very controlled. It's a beautiful place. But you could go on and on. I mean, Pantanal, actually. I mean, people always go to the Amazon because they think they're going to see animals there. But the truth is, when you go to the Amazon, you really see a big river and a lot of trees. But the animals don't tend to come and say hi because they hide in the canopy there. But in Pantanal, which is the world's largest wetlands, they have nowhere to hide because there aren't many trees. So you actually, if you really want to see animals, you go to Pantanal and you'll see 500 things a day. And in Amazon, you might see 3 things in a week. So there's all kinds of places like that aren't really on the international map yet.
All right. What do you reckon, Melissa? What are your favourite spots? I mean, either close to Sao Paulo or elsewhere. Do you have anything you'd add to that?
In São Paulo or nearby, you mean?
Yeah, why not?
Near we have Ilhabela. It's a very beautiful island with rainforests. It's near, so travelers that are here in São Paulo can go there and have a great time. Here in the city, I would recommend Parque do Ibirapuera, of course. It's very nice to see that green space between, surrounded with so many buildings. We have Mercado Central. It's a central market in the city, and then people can taste our specialties like Bologna sandwich. It's a sandwich of mortadella. It's very nice, very delicious. And outside São Paulo, there are also Florianópolis. It's an island in the south, and it's a very beautiful city. It's between Porto Alegre and Curitiba, so people who are there for the matches can go to Florianópolis. It's near, like 3 hours of traveling from Curitiba, for example. It's very beautiful to go there.
I like to tell people that Florianópolis is the host city that should have been. Right. Maybe a few of the others, because Florianópolis is really a beautiful place and they have very good infrastructure. So too bad that they weren't one of the host cities.
Ah, yes.
And I was just going to say, just for the benefit of people listening, because I think you've come up with some really, really great suggestions. What we'll do is we will tweet afterwards a list of the suggestions that you've put out if people want to, get those and do some follow-on reading from them, because I think you mentioned a great place and I was scribbling them down. I didn't get them all down, so very good. Just on Bonito specifically, I've heard about that place before, and it's been on my list for a while for somewhere to go. There's no risk of you being nibbled by piranhas when you are floating down these crystal clear rivers, is there?
No, actually, there's more of a risk in Pantanal of that. But actually, the piranhas don't really attack humans unless you jump into a school of them. Because I remember when I updated my first Lonely Planet guide, which was the Brazil book, I had the Pantanal as part of my region, and we went piranha fishing, and we actually stood in the river, just rolling up our pants. and fish for piranhas, and they don't mess with you at all. And everyone in my group was like, "Are you kidding? We're getting in, and it's no problem." But no risk of that in Bonito. As far as I know, I've not heard of any piranhas in Bonito, but it is nearby.
I won't hold you to that if it becomes apparent that something happens in the future. We've had one question, just going briefly back to the subject of sort of personal safety. Pickpocketing, specifically tips to avoid it is the question. I mean, if someone asked me this, I would say don't go out with something that you're not prepared to lose. As someone who's had their pocket picked in several cities around the world, I think it can be a problem everywhere, or you don't have to be a victim for it. Any suggestions on that one?
I'll take this one. I'm the obvious person to take this one because I was already pickpocketed at the first game of the Cup. So right. I would say, obviously, Tom, your advice is standard in general, but specifically in the World Cup, this has been the biggest security problem, actually. There are rats everywhere. They call them rats in Portuguese. And they managed to get my tickets out of my front pocket in FIFA's secure line to enter the stadium in Belo Horizonte. Wow. And I actually felt them go, but there's so many people around you that it's impossible to know who it is. And it was Colombia and Greece, and they just stick on the Colombian jersey, so they blend right in. It's just another person in yellow, and it's just impossible. So I would say guard your tickets with your life, put them in a money belt or anywhere else where someone cannot easily grab them, because these guys are magicians. And I noticed now after the first match where this happens that they made a lot of adjustments in Belo Horizonte and in other places, and now you're having to show tickets more often to get into these corridors, whereas the first set of games you didn't have to do that, so any person could go in there, and now they're sort of taking steps and to prevent that, which is good. But I'm happy to say that none of my tickets have been stolen after this. I learned my lesson, and that won't be happening again. And so I would not go your tickets that isn't the stadium. I wouldn't take your tickets to the bars and anything silly like that. I mean, that's crazy.
I'm intrigued. I mean, I'm a football fan myself, and I've been lucky enough to go to a few bigger games in my time. I've never been to a World Cup. What games are you going to? Who are you going to see play? Where's next?
Next, well, so far I missed Colombia, Greece because my tickets were limited. Then I saw the U.S. match against Ghana in Natal. That one was obviously awesome. And then I went to Belgium, South Korea last night, which wasn't the best game, but I was actually 4 rows from the pitch, which I didn't realize until I had gotten to my seats that I was so close. So it was an amazing game from the perspective of being so close. You can hear the players talk. It's a different experience. Next for me is I have a second round match, which is now Argentina and Switzerland in São Paulo, where I will again guard my tickets with my life because the Argentines have made a lot of headlines here in the last match in Porto Alegre that 100,000 of them had shown up without tickets, and there was a lot of pickpocketing, and not just pickpocketing, but general like attacks and robbery to take people's tickets. So I'm going to be guarding them even more with during the Argentine match. And then that's the last match for me right now. I'm still trying to get tickets maybe to a semifinal in São Paulo because the FIFA is releasing a few tickets here and there as we go. As teams are eliminated, their fan-base tickets are put back in the system. Right. So I'm watching it like a hawk, trying to maybe get one more game. I don't want to be in the final because if Brazil wins the final, I don't want to be stuck at the stadium, not be able to get back to Copacabana and Ipanema for the party. And if Brazil loses the final, I feel like you are a sitting duck in a stadium where there could be some violence. So I think it's just not the best place to be.
Sure. And Melissa, Melissa, I don't know if you're going to any games or not. And if you're not going, how are people best experiencing matches? I suppose with a typical Brazilian atmosphere. Is it bars? Is it on the streets? Is it watching big screens? What would you suggest?
Here in São Paulo, people can go to the FIFA Fan Fest. It's very nice to be there, and I think not only to watch the match, but to feel the atmosphere, the party. People can go also to Vila Madalena here. We are having like a carnival there every Brazil match, and it's very nice. Before, during the match, and after. Of course, if Brazil wins, it's better. And and some people I know, they are going to to the stadiums, even without tickets, only to see the football fans arriving to feel the atmosphere. I'm planning to do this too, and of course, I'm planning to have a ticket for the semi-final game. But if I don't have, I'm going to be there to see football fans arriving and firing after the match.
I would also add something there. Brazilian is the barbecue, the home barbecue. Lots of people have barbecues during the games, and if you're a foreigner here and you could get yourself invited to one of those, you really see a very nice aspect of Brazilian culture, friendliness, eating the barbecue, sharing beer, watching the matches. I think people who aren't going to Vila Madalena in the stadiums and the Fan Fest, they throw a lot of barbecues, and it's a really nice experience.
God, that sounds very nice. Sounds very, very nice. Sounds good. You know, I was really intrigued reading about some of the advice that was given to English fans to plan very carefully. I'm sure it was similar advice to lots of countries. It's the first time I've seen the British government give advice about how to get to Manaus by boat, which I thought was a very exotic piece of information for government to provide travelling football fans, and very thoughtful. I don't know if they did that. If someone's thinking about going to Brazil after the tournament, because I'm sure I'm speaking for most people who are watching, that I now really, really want to go to Brazil, where I've never been, apart from transiting through São Paulo airport, where should you start planning? Kevin, how do you start planning a trip to Brazil?
I would say you start by really taking a look at your bank account and seeing how much money you have in there, because it's an expensive place to visit. But once you do that, you really have to decide how much time you have and manage it geographically, because if you only have a week or two, I would say I would stick in the sort of Rio, Salvador, take a domestic flight or two, that kind of thing. But if you really want to see the whole country, at least a very nice slice of the country, you would need about a month. And I would really try to go from the Amazon down through Bahia, through Rio and São Paulo, and on to the south, and get over to the interior and Minas Gerais a bit. And you're going to need a month for that, and that's with flights. So it's really about time management and savings and what your interests are. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I would include the colonial village we have in Minas Gerais, and like Ouro Preto, and
Tiradentes.
Tiradentes, and also our Pantanal. You can go to Cuiabá, then you can know Pantanal is the biggest wetland in the world. And also you can go to Chapada dos Guimarães, is near Cuiabá also, and it's a very nice place to hiking and to have another vision of our nature. It's a very different place.
Yeah, again, it sounds absolutely fantastic. Guys, we're going to wrap up there. A half an hour has absolutely flown by, so thank you very much. Thanks to Kevin and to Melissa for taking part, and thanks to everyone who's reading this, watching this afterwards as well as at the time. There's three things just to say. Firstly, if you go to lonelyplanet.com/world-cup, you will find Kevin's updates on the tournament and a free mini guide. If you're not already following Kevin on Twitter, I certainly recommend doing so at Raub on the road, RAUB on the road, and you can share updates using the hashtag lpcelebrazil. So that's all for this one, and I should really wish you all very well. I won't break into an English football song, but certainly if Brazil win, you can both come back on here and you can show us how cheery you are the night after.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.